mentioned there the speed of business in China.
Yeah.
And I think for people who haven't been on the ground here, it's kind of difficult to imagine what it's really like. In fact, you can't really even fully understand unless you're on the ground here. So how do you keep pace with that speed? How do you keep updated with all the news that's coming out?
Man, I have a friend who he's a mineral economist, and he always tells me, he's like, man, dude, you know what I love about mineral economics? They have been the same for millennia, essentially. Those base minerals and the trading of these assets and things, they don't change. You're just leveraging, organizations and how those, optimizing the processes and stuff. And he's right. Like, the space that you choose will, is going to give you gray hair and going to be extremely, difficult to keep up. And I've chosen a particularly difficult space: social media, the internet, marketing, advertising, e-commerce, and things like that. And it's a particular fast pace of growth here. And fortunately, you cannot put yourself into this environment if you don't want to be totally immersed and married to it and engrossed in this thing, because keeping up with it is going to be tremendously difficult. For just from a business stance, you are, WeChat is a 24/7 communication tool, and it's used like that with businesses and bosses and colleagues and girlfriends and family and friends, and it never turns off, and it is going to become the love and bane of your existence. And then the pace of change here is incredibly difficult to keep up with. And as someone who's a content marketer for a platform, a large part of my strategy for PARKLU, and one of the reasons why it is what it is today, are known in its space, is because our ability to educate other people and our ability to keep them up to date and consolidating massive amounts of information into short consumable content that people can really utilize in their decision making and business processes. And so it's tough. It's a very, very fast-paced and difficult thing to keep up with. And sometimes I think if I ever question myself, that's actually one of the things that I question myself on, is keeping up with this thing is not lifelong sustainable. You will have to transition to something else and to younger, sharper minds that can remember these things and keep up with this stuff, and knowing that at some point I cannot keep all of these statistics and all of these platforms and operations and utilization opportunities and stuff in myself. That's not something that is I'm still a young guy, but I do know that there's a limit, there's a shelf life to being able to keep up with stuff, and just even a desire to this. It's a young guy's game kind of thing, or a young person's game. And so for now it's good and it gives you a lot of energy, but at the same time, it's tough. It's really tough.
And how important would you say, 7 years that you have been here in China, being on the ground, how important would you say it is to be on the ground if you want to sort of set something up here in China or do business in China?
Oh man, I almost scoff at anybody that isn't here, that is trying to really be connected with this environment. And because there's a layer of guanxi, the relationships, baseline relationships, there is a part of Chinese behavior, business behavior, is that they want to have a face-to-face physical interaction, even though they're so apt and technology has become so pervasive in the relationship process. But and then I think there's just an immersion there. You can't be distracted by Western news. You can't be distracted by what your friends and family are talking about. That puts you at a disadvantage. Your friends are not talking about China when you're in the US. Your family is not talking about the newest platform that came up or the opportunities, or you're in a constant, you have to be here just because you need 24 hours of immersion of information and processing and things that make sense. And even when you're having conversations with your friends or sharing the latest restaurant or interaction with the spaces that you're in, all of that's still part of your China education. And if you're a sharp individual, you're putting all of those things together constantly. And so if you're not here, you're going to be behind the curve, 100%. You cannot read enough articles or log on to and there's part of the Chinese internet that you need a VPN just to get back into, that you cannot interact with China and be up to speed without being here. That's my personal take on it. I think that that's just the requirement of an environment that moves this fast. I kind of want to ask you.
Yeah.
So you're going to be leaving China, and I know that part of your position too is teaching business and educating people and stuff. How are you going to keep up?
Yeah.
With,
good question.
With that.
I'm not sure, because it's been interesting how my niche has shifted a bit recently. Because before, when I was living full time in China, I was a coach, but I was focusing only on sort of individual stuff, right? And then when I left and I started spending more time back in Ireland, I found that I kind of at that time thought, like, we're out, I'm finished with China, like, we're going. Because we left because of my son's health, and I was like, we can't go back. Like, just the pollution, right? And so I kind of just, in my head, I was like, I'm finished. But there were all these people that kept coming back, like coaching clients that I had before, and they're like, we need help from you. I was like, oh, but I'm not in China anymore. And they're like, we can do video. And I was like, I don't know, will that work? Coaching over video? And now it's like 95% of the stuff I do is on video.
Sure.
So it sort of, there were these things pulling me back, and then this thing happened, which was it blew my mind, where my wife started like this live stream channel on Bilibili, and for some reason it did really well, and we'd have up to like 30,000 people watching us at the same time, and I was like we didn't even plan this, she was doing it basically because she was feeling lonely in Ireland and she wanted to speak to Chinese people, so she was just live streaming, and for some reason people were really interested, and I was like, oh, what can we do with this, right? And at that time, when I'd moved back to Ireland, I'd gotten into a full-time job in doing business coaching, and I wasn't really enjoying my job that much, just the company culture. And I'd started doing a bit of coaching again, like in terms of my own stuff, my own business, but I was like, can that really sustain the family? I'm not sure. And then we were using this live stream platform to sell, well, we thought, okay, we have eyeballs, and we met up with some Irish business people who were trying to expand out to China. And we were like, well, we have these people watching, I don't know, do you want us to try and sell some of your products? And they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead, see what works.
Did you sell for Irish Baby?
Yes, yeah. So this was...
Okay, I know the story.
Right?
I know.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I actually didn't know that you're the Irish Baby has been obsessed with like influencer marketing ever since, from what you guys have done for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so that was that's how I heard about you originally. First, like PARKLU.
Got it.
Because they were saying we've been in touch with other agencies and stuff. And so we started selling for them, and they got like some mad sales immediately. Right? And they were like, "What are you doing?" And we were like, "We don't know, but let's keep doing it." So we kept doing that for a while, and it got to the stage where like I quit my job, and we were just doing this basically full time.
Amazing.
And it got me thinking too, though. I was like, how do I make this sustainable, right? Because I don't really want to be live streaming every day in the sense of it's like a full-time job. Like you just, you're telling people about products. You also got to keep people entertained. People are asking questions, but it's often the same questions over and over. So you get a little bit tedious, a little bit bored with that. And so I was like, okay, we've done something here. How can I make it sustainable? So I started thinking more about my coaching, and the live streaming people, they're just not my target audience, right, for coaching, but not at all. And so that's when I got a little bit more involved in LinkedIn, and then I was talking to you, and I started posting articles, and they weren't getting any traction, and then you sort of recommended that I keep trying and post into groups and stuff, and I was like, okay, let me see if it works. And I did, and then I started getting more traction, and then I started getting like a whole lot of coaching clients out of LinkedIn. I was like, oh my God, I'm on the other side of the world. I haven't even come back to China yet. And I focused on China because that's where all my other clients were.
Yep.
And also there's like this speed of business that you were talking about, like this ambition.
Yep.
Like people who are here to work and they're here to get stuff done.
Yep.
So it's like, how can I help them do that?
Yep.
And having been here in China and had some amazing opportunities here, like I went on TV quite a lot, and I sort of I had an audience of people that were interested in the stuff that I was talking about, and you know, I also had an understanding, having run my own businesses here, like what I can actually do, and people who haven't done that, you know, how they can do it better.
Yeah.
And so then I shifted my niche. I was thinking, you know, like China has boomed and it's continuing to boom, maybe not quite as fast, but there's still huge potential there. And I'm sort of one of those earlier generation people who's been in and done stuff and done some interesting stuff and had some great opportunities and have a decent understanding of how the ecosystem works. So how can I help other people do that? And so that's when this whole China dream thing started, and I was thinking, you know, no one's in that space, you know, like we hear the American dream, China dream, we've heard more and more recently, but it's kind of like there's no one focusing on that. And so my idea also in terms of China dreams is different from the American dream, right? It's not like American dream is very individualistic, like how can I go there and make it big? And I'm more interested in the bigger impact, right? Like I see China as a huge vehicle to take the world out of the place that it's in at the moment, which is not so great on a global scale. And I see China having potential to really be the engine for that. And so it's like, how can I help make that happen and do it in a way that I'm sort of helping provide information to people who can actually, you know, make a difference, right? And make an impact. And so that's where my coaching has been focused recently. And now I have more clients than I can handle, kind of thing, you know. And also it's completely location free. So it's like I'm here for a few months, and we've kind of come here just because I had to come back because I'm applying for Canadian permanent residence and I had to get my documents and all that. And it's like I came back for a little while, and then my wife is from Shanghai, so she's like, let's stay a bit longer. I was like, okay. And because my coaching is now virtual, it's like I can be anywhere. And then just being here on the ground again, it's like things pick up again, and I'm meeting people, and there's so many opportunities, and so I'm building this thing out now. So it's like there's nowhere like it. And I had the idea of getting out, but it's pulled me back, right? And I still have the plan to take my kids out, right, and go and travel and, you know, take them around the world. But at the same time, I think that I'll be back to China a lot, right? Like it's just you can't ignore it these days, no matter where you are. So that's kind of a bit of my story.
I love it, man. No, it's funny that I already I didn't know that you were
that
the
link,
Irish baby, the Irish baby couple live streaming. It's a powerful thing. The ability to provide people with information and entertainment and authenticity, trust, and then offer them the opportunity to engage with products and services. It's very interesting.
You're one of the people I know here who has a very good grasp of Chinese. Like you can read Chinese and you can read Chinese articles, and you know, I think there's a lot of foreigners here now who can have that conversation level, but really getting deep into content. I think there's not that many people at that level.
I think people believe that I have a really My Chinese is not that good. My Chinese is, and actually my spoken Chinese has suffered a lot because I date a Cantonese native speaking girl, and I have been for the last year like working remote and things like that. But I, you know, since I was homeschooled, severely dyslexic, didn't learn how to read until I was 11 years old, still cannot spell, have extreme limitations when it comes to some of the typical scholastic, you know, abilities of the average human being. But because of that, I have learned how to leverage systems and people and put myself in positions to survive and adapt and leverage things the way that other people don't. And that's where my strength comes from. My strength doesn't come from my own ability. My strength comes from the ability of leveraging other people's ability. And so I realize the power of specialization, and that I believe that to some degree that when I was young, I believed that a jack of all trades was quite a respectable, interesting thing. But now I believe that is the specialization and the real supreme focus on your skills and your abilities, and then the sharing of that knowledge, that actually is where real power comes from, and real opportunity, the opportunity to leverage a system. And you know, when you think about how an engine works, or a car or something like that, everything is so specialized and so aligned and communicates and works and so well, and that's why that machine is so wonderful. And I see organizations and people and individuals and countries and the world as being the same thing, in that I know what I am very good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I allow others to be good at what they're good at, and I identify that, and then I utilize that myself. And so I'm able to maybe have some appearance that I am some very talented individual when it comes to language and those types of things, but I'm not. I have good baseline skills, and I live in Beijing, which is different from a Chinese expat or a Shanghai expat. I think Shanghai expats can get away with essentially little to none Chinese, where in Beijing we don't have that luxury. Like you have to be able to speak the language to some degree, and so I can do some reading, I can do some writing, and I can ting the dong and, you know, speak, but I'm not some sort of high level expert.
I usually can pick up, right, like who's good at Chinese and who isn't,
yeah.
And I don't know, just from the way that you put yourself across and the stuff that you know and how quickly you know it, it seems like you're very steeped into the Chinese media and all of that. So
I am, yeah. But that's because I know how to leverage the individuals in my organization and my girlfriend and you know, a little bit of like you know, just perceptive of if this makes sense over here and this is happening here, then this is probably the conclusion. And so not always having to know the information to know the answer, because 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing. Yeah.
That's a great answer that I haven't heard before. I'd be interested to hear then your perspective in terms of how important do you think it is to learn Chinese if you want to do business here?
Honestly, I think it's really important. I do. I think you know, obviously there's a lot of very successful foreigners in China that don't speak the language, and depending on where you're located, in Hong Kong or in Shanghai, you know, Hong Kong even more so, Shanghai less so, but still you can get away with a very low language aptitude and such. Beijing less, or any other second or third tier city, probably in descending order, but I think it's really important. And it's also important to, you know, when you're managing people and communicating with, you know, if you're going to be running an organization and having Chinese staff and such, like being able to be compassionate and understand people and create culture and communicate, you know, and understand other people's desires, hopes, dreams, and goals, and being able to align that with an organization's hopes, dreams, and goals, and being able to communicate the connection between those things and orient people in the right direction, like, and sympathy and apathy and all of that, like, the language is really important. And I wouldn't recommend people to be in the space that I'm in, and that is having somewhat limited language skills. I think that is I'm not proud of that, but I am, but I do everything I can to move beyond that, and to create environments that other people feel safe in, and you know, organizations are about people, and business is about people, and what make people so special is their ability to communicate with each other, and then utilize that communication to optimize systems and situations, just like that car, that, like, you know, being specialized in something. So I think it's really, really important, because you need to be able to understand how to optimize something in a situation and such. And like I'm a little bit of a hacker in everything that I do. Like that's just part of a little bit. My father instilled some of that into me, and my own like ways of getting stuff done, and you know, utilizing whether it be LinkedIn or or language, you know, learning and stuff like that. So I've just been able to hack it. But the reality is I would say that you should start with a solid foundation in the language if you want to set yourself up for success. And I think moving forward, it's even going to be more important because of how China is changing. And essentially, you're just going to lose your opportunity for whatever that opportunity is if you're not bilingual and if you're not fluent in the language. And because you're just not going to be as good as the next guy that can grasp and take that opportunity and run with it. And so I get away, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Touched upon there, your team and the culture of your team, and sort of communicating with your team. And I hear from most entrepreneurs that one of the biggest challenges here is finding the right people in your team and retaining those people.
Yeah.
So what is your process for sort of taking new people on in your team? How do you find the right people, and how do you make sure that they stay?
In some ways, I have a little bit of a different approach, and I think a little bit of a different view on some things. I think that there is a baseline, maybe aptitude that someone will have to tools, you know, like they've learned how to use, in my case, Photoshop or WordPress or some sort of video editing and then utilizing knowing how to utilize a language and stuff. But I really believe, because of my own experience and my own difficulties with education and language and being successful in scholastic type things, I really believe in believing in people, and I really believe in creating opportunities for people to succeed. And I really believe in that if you believe in someone, and if you give them the opportunity, and if you motivate them, that you can see results that would commonly be reserved for very highly skilled individuals or people that are really elite talent. And so I believe that elite talent comes from love and patience from their parents and from teachers and from the environment. They were crafted from those things. And so I myself then can take someone that maybe without that type of love and support wouldn't be able to perform at that level, by giving them love and support and trusting them and nurturing them and saying that I believe in you and I'm going to give you the freedom to fail, and I'm not going to punish you when you fail, and I'm going to motivate you to I want you to do the best that you can do, and then the next time you do it, I want you to do it better, because I believe that you can do it better. And I'm going to continue to push yourself, and I'm going to give you whatever support you need. I will give you whatever you need. You give me the resources, and I will work alongside of you, and I will motivate you by you can observe my behavior, and you can see that I am going to push myself, and I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I would not do myself. I will actually ask you to do less than I do myself, and I will lead by example through those things. And so I don't need to have, and I don't have access to it. I'm at a startup. I don't have access to elite talent. I'm not in a AAA or an agency that can provide you with the bravado of a really cool branded name that everybody knows and trusts around the world. And I don't have the wages and the ability to pay you what some of those organizations or other opportunities will. And so I'm already somewhat relegated to what people would consider, the second and third tier and lesser levels of talent. But I don't need that level of talent. And I've proven that to myself many times over. And within even PARKLU itself, I believe that we create the best content on KOL marketing in China. And I think we've proven that for, since I've been there. And I know the back end growth. I know the reception that we get from clients. I know those things. And that's not because I have a baseline elite talent, but I do. I do because I give them the opportunity, and I give them the motivation, and I give them the that belief and trust that they can be that thing, and that I make decisions based upon what's interesting, and sometimes maybe what's fun, and what will be different than other people, and if that's one of the fun parts about China, but about startups too, is that like you have the opportunity to do things differently, and you have to do things differently, because if you do it the way that everybody else is doing it, you're going to fail, because you don't have the resources, you don't have the talent, you don't have the money, and so you have to play the game in a different way, and you have to find where the opportunities are and where other people are weak, and where you have the opportunities to be strong. And so I don't need to access that type of talent. I just need to motivate and give opportunity to the talent that I do have, and then realize that and believe that they are top talent, and treat them as such. And treating people like there is something so magical about believing in other people. I have seen that, like my girlfriend being a top beauty influencer. The reason that she's a top beauty influencer is because I believed in her. That's it. That is the secret sauce. The reason that my team produces the best KOL marketing content in China, I believe in both languages, Chinese and English, it's because I believe in them, and I give them that opportunity to be the best, and I treat them as that. And unfortunately, I can't always treat them like that financially, or giving them a really good name. But I believe PARKLU as an organization is highly respected in its space, and that has been through the efforts of branding and marketing done by a very small dynamic team that really just was given a lot of faith in their ability to do well.
For people who are either thinking about entering into China, or they've been here for a short time, they're thinking of setting up their own thing, what would you say are still some of the untapped opportunities that exist in this?
Ooh, untapped opportunities. I still think that there is an upper echelon quality of content, entertainment content, and communication, business. I always think content. I mean, I'm a marketing, entertainment, media person, and so I believe at the very high levels, there's still a lot of opportunity there to create premium stuff. Like the real premium stuff is, I still think Chinese TV sucks. The movies generally suck. I'm not just like, that's taking in information from Chinese and stuff too, like not just on my own opinion. Like I think that some of the communication and the companies that do it really well, they do, I love what's the name of the company? Etia, or I can visualize a character, but I can't remember the name. That they were a really elite content creator for lifestyle content, as far as home design and different things. And now they've launched an e-commerce platform after doing that for like 5 years. And now they've launched an e-commerce platform that in its first year did $250 million in revenue, and all based on creating premium quality content. A lot of people are really, really focused right now on e-commerce and the things that people can buy, and leveling up, giving them access to foreign products, or leveling up the quality of products that are made domestically and stuff. And absolutely, there's a lot of opportunity in that, no doubt. But I feel like that's also one of the most competitive spaces that you could ever choose to be in, or that exists in China. Extremely competitive. I think that the entertainment space is much, much less competitive. I think that that there's a huge opportunity to, if you look at the commoditization of media and content and those types of things, it's really, really big, really big. And when you think about people's time and the value of an individual's time, then you start to really see the magnitude of that opportunity. And I think it's very significant.
So if you were to come to China now, let's say wipe the slate clean, and you had to start from scratch, and you were giving yourself some advice starting today, what would that advice be?
I think it would be the same advice to some degree that I would give to any, I'm assuming, young person, and that is, find the thing that you are or want to be the best at. It is so much better to optimize yourself, and not be a jack of all trades, and to be, somewhat future-proof. Think about future-proofing yourself. That would be the two parts, is looking at that crystal ball, like not looking at where things are today, look at where things are going to be tomorrow, and think of yourself in that environment of tomorrow, and how you can take where you are or want to be, because you can educate yourself to be extremely skilled at anything you want to be. Passion is a bigger player in aptitude than, I think, baseline skills. I mean, when you come up with the Picassos or Einsteins or very, very advanced, individuals, when they align passion and natural capability, that's when you come up with a Steve Jobs, with the best people in the world. But I believe passion trumps talent, because talent can sit on a couch. Passion can drive and will succeed. Even with a lack of talent. And so you can choose to not follow your talent, but you cannot go into it without passion. And so understanding, aligning your future self with that future environment, I would say to look at China and say, where is it going? Where is it going to be? And where's the growth at? And what are you going to specialize in that environment? And what are you going to be? Pick your location and drive at that location, and allow it to move within the range of the pendulum, but don't go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Focus on this range and drive at that thing. Understand who you're going to be in that space. And I really, really believe in the niche. And what I mean by the niche is that it is so much better to be a big fish in a small pond. And there's a really, really great book that I love called How Brands Grow. And it exposes in there's a really, really great statistic that in any market, the market leader is commonly going to have 50+% of that space, and number two is going to have a max of 25% in that space, and everybody else is going to be relegated to less than 5%. I personally, because of my personality, because of those things, I don't want to be the less than 5%. I also don't really want to be the 25%. I want to be the big fish in a small pond. And I think that positioning yourself, for myself personally, I would say be a big fish in a small pond. Find the niche, find the area where you become the expert, where you become the talent, because then you get to play the game by your terms. Nobody gets to tell you where you go or what you do or what your limitations are. You get to dictate. And I think that with proper preparation and proper passion and proper predictions, that you can be a big fish in a small pond. And so I would look for the small pond, and I would look for what inside of yourself you can drive yourself to be as big a fish as possible in that space.
People are looking to find out about you or your work or PARKLU. Where do they find you online? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. So PARKLU is parklu.com, PARKLU.com. And I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and just Elijah Whaley. Maybe I have to spell it out for him somewhere.
It'll be there, yeah.
and I have personal websites that I don't maintain very well, but LinkedIn's a good space. And then, I'm totally open to people adding me on WeChat and stuff like that, which is just Elijah Whaley, just all one word.
Thanks very much, Elijah. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Awesome. Loved it.